You've paid your mortgage for 10, maybe 20 years. So why does it feel like you're still running on a financial treadmill, barely keeping up? You feel house poor, right? Everybody blames the 30-year mortgage. But the truth is, the real money drain isn't the bank. It's the hidden tax we willingly pay on home ownership. The real culprit isn't the loan. It's the 5 invisible costs that no real estate agent wants to talk about. I've spent years dissecting homeowner finances, and I'm going to decode these phantom expenses for you. Watch this to the end if you don't want your home to become your biggest financial liability. If you're currently experiencing the joy of being house poor, or you're thinking about buying a house and want to avoid this trap entirely, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this situation feels painfully familiar to you. Now, let's talk about the foundation of the problem, the misunderstood housing cost. Most of us define our housing cost as PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's the number the bank gives you, and that's the number you plug into your budget. But that is only half the story. The true enemy is the home ownership cost. Here's the massive distinction that the real estate industry conveniently ignores. Home ownership. Cost includes PITI plus the invisible, inevitable expenses that drain your bank account every single year. I'm talking about maintenance, repairs, emergency replacements, and crucially, the opportunity cost of having large chunks of money tied up in an illiquid asset. People worry about a 6% interest rate, but the truth is, the 2% annual maintenance cost you ignore is what will actually kill your cash flow. This is the part that turns a house from an asset into a financial quicksand. Let me give you a sobering reality check. Studies show that a significant percentage of American homeowners, nearly 30%, do not have the funds to cover an unexpected $1,000 home repair. Think about that. You have a $500,000 asset, but you are one broken water heater away from credit card debt. That is, being poor, regardless of the equity you think you have. This brings us to the fundamental rules of engagement. If you break these, you will be house poor forever. First, the golden rule of housing affordability. Your total monthly housing cost, PITI, must never exceed 30% of your net take-home pay. Not your gross, your net. If you make $6,000 after taxes, your absolute hard limit for PITI is $1,800. Now let's talk about the invisible cost, maintenance. We use the hidden 1% maintenance rule. You must set aside at least 1% of your home's value per year for maintenance and eventual replacement of big-ticket items. If you own a $400,000 home, that is $4,000 a year, or about $330 a month, that needs to be put aside for the inevitable roof, AC unit, or water heater failure. Here's the contrast. High-income earners focus entirely on the mortgage rate, convinced they are being financially savvy. But the truly intentional homeowner focuses on minimizing the entire cost structure, especially the parts they can control, like maintenance and property taxes. You need to shift your mindset right now. Your house is not automatically an asset just because the bank gave you a loan. Your house is a money-consuming machine if you ignore the 1% annual maintenance cost. That 1% is the hidden fee you must budget for, or it will budget for you, usually at the worst possible time. This leads us to our first actual culprit that is silently draining your resources right now. Culprit number 1, the old interest rate and the refinancing trap. The first killer of cash flow for current homeowners in 2025 is simply the interest rate they are sitting on. Look, If you bought a house between late 2022 and 2024, you likely snagged an interest rate in the 6.5% to 7.5% range. And right now, the conventional wisdom you hear from every financial pundit is, don't refinance. Rates are still high. Just wait for the Fed to cut rates. I call this the waiting game trap. It's the mistake of focusing on the perfect outcome instead of the possible outcome. While you are sitting around waiting for rates to hit 4% again, you are hemorrhaging money month after month. If you are sitting on a 7% mortgage and you see an offer for a 25% rate, even with closing costs, you must run the math. This is where the concept of the strategic mini refi comes in. Don't think about refinancing for the full $200,000 or $300,000 balance. Think smaller. Maybe you take out a small home equity line of credit, HELOC, or a smaller, focused refinance with a local credit union. The goal isn't to save a lifetime of interest. The goal is to save money right now to free up cash flow for the other 4 invisible costs we're about to discuss. Let me show you a real-world example of how to beat this waiting game. Let's say a refinance will cost you $5,000 in closing costs, but that new, slightly lower rate saves you $200 a month on your payment. You are 100% right. Refinancing costs money. But your break-even point is only 25 months. That's just over 2 years. Every payment after the 25th month is pure savings, cash flow you can use to build that emergency repair fund. The person who waits is the person who is focused on the cost of refinancing. The intentional homeowner is focused on the time to break even. The mistake most people make is that they lump all financing into one big, scary 30-year commitment. You need to treat your mortgage like a living document. Shop local credit unions. Look for lenders who offer smaller, lower-fee refinance products. Do not be paralyzed by the media's obsession with the Fed's next move. Here's the debate we need to settle. Is a $5,000 closing cost worth it if it saves you $10,000? $0 over the next 5 years and frees up $200 in cash flow right now. Absolutely. Stop playing the waiting game. Start playing the break-even game. That immediate cash flow is your first line of defense. Culprit number 2, the forever property tax hike. Let's address the elephant in the room, the one cost associated with your home that has the insidious tendency to rise year after year with zero input from you. Property taxes. This is the hidden cost that truly never goes away. Unlike your principal payment, which shrinks, or your interest payment, which is fixed, the government slice of your homeownership pie is dynamic. It is determined by your local assessor, and it is almost always appraised higher than it should be. Here is the alert. Your property tax is often the second largest component of your PITI payment, and it's the only one you have any control over after you close the deal. The strategy here is called Tax Assessment Challenge, or what I like to call fighting back against City Hall. This leads to the 90% lie. 90% of homeowners in America who are overassessed on their property tax never appeal the decision. Why? Because it seems complicated, intimidating, or time-consuming. And this is exactly what the local government is counting on. They send out thousands of appraisal notices, knowing that only a handful of people will challenge the system. Let me show you the absurdity of this behavior. You will spend 1 hour searching for a $10 online coupon code, but you refuse to spend 10 hours researching comparable sales in your neighborhood to save, potentially thousands of dollars in property taxes. You are prioritizing the emotional satisfaction of finding a small discount over the mathematical leverage of a major saving. That is financially backward. The intentional homeowner must treat the annual property tax assessment notice like a financial threat. You need to research the comps, the sale prices of similar homes in your area, and if your assessed value is higher, you have a solid, data-driven argument. This is not about cheating the system. It's about ensuring you are not overpaying for your rightful share of local services. I remember helping a client in Texas who was assessed $50, $0 higher than two identical homes that sold down the street. We spent 3 hours gathering data and writing a formal appeal. The result? Her property tax was lowered by 15%, which saved her over $800 every single year, indefinitely. That's a guaranteed 800% ROI on 3 hours of work. The takeaway is simple. You must stop accepting the tax bill as fate. Be proactive. Be data-driven. The vast majority. Culprit number 3. The financial quicksand of failed DIY. Okay, let's get personal. We've all been there. You look at a simple home repair, a leaky faucet, a fence needing replacement, maybe some minor electrical work, and you think, I can do that myself. I'll save the $500 labor fee. This is the great financial lie of the homeowner, that DIY always saves money. Statistically and emotionally, it often becomes a massive self-inflicted wound. I call this the DIY financial quicksand. Why? Because DIY projects are rarely just about the cost of parts. They are about the cost of time, the cost of failure, and the cost of unintended, catastrophic secondary damage. We need to draw a clear line between cosmetic dye, painting a room, assembling furniture, and structural/utility dye, plumbing, electrical, roofing. If it involves water, fire, or the foundation of the house, you should not be doing it unless you are a licensed professional. The average homeowner's failed attempt at fixing a small leak can easily turn into a $5,000 mold remediation and drywall replacement project. The amateur hour you spent saving $300 in labor cost you $5,000 in damages, plus the weekend you lost and the stress that follows. Here's our rule, the 3 attempts rule. If you are working on a structural or utility issue and you cannot solve it, or you create a new problem, within 3 dedicated attempts, you must immediately drop the tool and call a professional. Your time and mental health are too valuable. This is where the emotional component of being house poor kicks in. The pressure to save every dollar pushes you into areas where you have zero competence, and you end up paying the emotional and financial price for that decision. I watched a friend try to fix a tiny drip in his toilet tank. He spent 8 hours on Saturday watching YouTube tutorials, went to the hardware store 3 times, and by Sunday night, he had flooded his entire first-floor bathroom because he over-tightened a fitting. His $20 leak turned into a $7,000 insurance claim, a deductible, and 6 weeks of chaos. The punchline he learned the hard way? Your time is not free. And the worst DIY project is the one you never finish. Stop trading small labor savings for massive, unquantifiable risk. Culprit number 4, the neighborhood comparison tax. This is where we leave the structural costs and enter the psychological. The 4th invisible cost draining your money in 2025 is the neighborhood comparison tax. This is the constant, subtle, and sometimes overt pressure you feel to keep up with the Joneses. Your neighbor installs an outdoor kitchen, so now you feel compelled to redo your deck. Your sister buys a $1,000 smart vacuum, so suddenly Your old vacuum feels inadequate. This pressure forces homeowners into endless cycles of aesthetic upgrades that carry a massive cost but zero financial return on investment, or ROI. You need to define your upgrade goals. Is this a maintenance cost, which protects the home's value, like a new roof? Or is this a dead cost, which only serves your personal aesthetic, like a custom-designed home theater? The intentional homeowner focuses on the former and ruthlessly cuts the latter. This leads to the gentle but absolutely necessary moment of chiding. We need to stop comparing our family's living situation to our neighbor's social media feed. The Joneses are likely drowning in debt to afford that perfect lawn and that expensive smart appliance. You are actively paying a tax, the comparison tax, just to maintain an illusion of success. You must internalize this simple philosophy. Your house is where you live. It is not a stage for performing success to your peers. If you are spending $20,000 on a perfectly manicured lawn and elaborate landscaping, that $20,000 is money that is not sitting in your investment account, compounding and securing your future. That is an opportunity cost driven purely by ego. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy your home, but you must distinguish between what you need and what social pressure is demanding. A $1,000 smart faucet that only tells you the temperature is a dead cost. A new, efficient water heater is a necessary maintenance investment. Here's the punchline that should stop you dead in your tracks the next time you browse Pinterest for home ideas. The cost of trying to impress your neighbor with a smart gadget is always higher than the gadget itself. It is the cost of living beyond your means, disguised as improving the home. Stop paying the comparison tax. Culprit number 5, the idle asset sin. We've covered the money leaks, but the final culprit is the opportunity lost. The 5th financial killer is what I call the idle asset sin. The failure to make your home earn money for you. Most people believe their house is only a place to live, a giant storage facility for their stuff, and a slow-moving investment vehicle. The intentional homeowner sees their house as a powerful, income-generating asset that should be working 24/7. You need to break the belief that you must occupy every single square foot of your property. This is where strategies like house hacking come into play, a term the intentional investor uses. It doesn't mean you have to rent out your spare bedroom to a random person. It can be as simple as strategically renting out your unused basement storage space, your spare garage spot, or using an accessory dwelling unit, ADU, if your local laws allow. Even if you don't want a long-term tenant, you can utilize the concept of geographic arbitrage. When you take your 2-week vacation, can you rent your house out on a short-term rental platform for 3 nights? That one small decision can cover your entire month's PITI payment. This strategy is about mitigating the cost of your house by generating supplementary income. The income is not taxed as heavily as your W-2 income, and you are using a structure that you already pay for. Let me share a quick case study. I worked with a young couple who bought a duplex. They lived in one unit and rented out the other. The rent they collected from the second unit covered 75% of their entire mortgage payment. They were building equity, benefiting from tax deductions, and living in a beautiful home. But their out-of-pocket cost was tiny. They turned their massive liability into a partially self-funding asset. The point is this: every square foot of your home that is not producing value or being actively used is costing you money. The wealthy utilize every resource. You must do the same. The punchline for the idle asset sin is crucial. When you are sleeping, your house should be working. If it isn't generating income, it is solely a liability eating into your future. All right, let's wrap this up. We started with the uncomfortable truth that your home, which is supposed to be your biggest asset, often feels like your biggest financial burden. We exposed the 5 invisible costs that are actually draining your cash flow in 2025, not just your mortgage payment. We talked about 1. The refinancing trap. Stop waiting for the perfect rate and start calculating your break-even point on a strategic mini refi. 2. The forever tax hike. Don't be part of the 90% who passively accepts the assessment. Challenge your property tax. 3. The DIY quicksand. Know the difference between cosmetic repair and structural chaos, and abide by the 3 attempts rule. 4. The comparison tax. Stop paying for aesthetic upgrades just to impress your neighbor. Focus only on ROI and necessary maintenance. 5. The idle asset sin. Start seeing your house as a tool and explore strategies like house hacking to make it earn money for you. The core philosophy to take away is this: your house is not automatically freedom. It is either a source of financial freedom or financial slavery. The difference between the two is simple: action and intention. The truly wealthy homeowner is not the person who buys the biggest house in the most exclusive neighborhood. The wealthy homeowner is the person with the lowest cost of home ownership. They are intentional about taxes, they are aggressive about interest, and they are ruthless about avoiding unnecessary spending. They treat their home as a financial system that must be optimized, not just a place to relax. Your homework is simple. Start with one change today. Call your mortgage broker to check rates, or look up comparable sales in your neighborhood to start that tax appeal process. If this video helped you save even a fraction of what those hidden costs are stealing, please hit that like button and share this with another homeowner who is feeling house poor. Now that we've dissected the biggest culprit, your home, it's time to move to the second largest drain on the average American paycheck. Next time, we are going to expose the 4 deadly mistakes that car buyers always make that cost them over $9,000 a year, and how to avoid them completely. Until then, remember this: you must actively control your home's finances. If you don't, it will absolutely control your life.